Yo, what's up fam? I just made a sound bank exclusively made for BeatMaker 3 and it's called Silk Strings, so let's check it out. Alright, so I kind of did a thing. I pretty much made an instrument inside of BeatMaker 3 made up of some pretty high definition samples of guitar chords. And what makes this so special is that I mapped a bunch of parameters to a bunch of macros, up to like 14 macros, so that you can tweak and manipulate this sample, all these samples on these pads to your liking, to your beat. You can use this for lo-fi beats, R&B beats, rap beats. No matter what the genre is, you can use this in your composition. And with all the parameter changes that you're able to do at your fingertips from the macros, you'll be able to get some very useful melodies and some very unique sonics from this instrument. So let's go ahead and walk through some of the macros and what they do and how they will affect the sound and the performance of this bank. So of course, because this is a guitar sample with guitar chords, I called it Silk Strings because it is so smooth, so fluent. It just gives the right amount of fullness to any melody that you're trying to compose. And it's very easy to strike some inspiration from some of the sounds that you can get when you start playing with these parameters. All right, so let's jump into it. So first off, in the macros tab, I have all the parameters set already, so no need to go ahead and go find things and tweaking things. Audio effects are all mapped to certain parameters, so if you want to, you could go ahead and tweak things if you want, but I have pretty much everything you'll probably need to get started. In the first macro number 1 through 8, we're going to go through number 1. So I kind of feel like that's self-explanatory. The pitch and key is going to govern the key that you're playing in. So and if we go up, you can already see how dope that is going to be. So macro number 2 is dedicated to the volume of this whole patch, this whole plugin. So the macros that you touch and adjust on the fly are going to affect how this sound bank performs real time. So again, self-explanatory. Macro number 2 is mapped to the volume. Next up, we have macro number 3. And what macro number 3 does is actually puts a muffle and of course you can play with the levels on how that will affect the strength of that muffle filter. Next up, what we have on macro number 4 is the reverb. So macro number 5 has the famous chorus effect that I love to hear on guitars. And let's turn the reverb down so you can hear the articulations in that chorus effect. And you can see that as we go higher and higher, you can see the effect on that chorus, the strength on the chorus effect. So this is when we start to get into the more interesting stuff. The macro number 6 has a pan and pulse effect. And it also controls the delay speed on another macro, and we'll talk about that in a second. So this one is going to pulse back and forth between your speakers or your headphones. And this is going to control the speed of how much it pulses. And number 7 actually controls the strength of that pan pulse. So you can actually hear it ping-ponging back and forth between your speakers. So if I bring the rate down, you can see it slow down. You can hear it slow down and pulse a little bit slower, pan back and forth a little bit slower. Or if I speed it up, and then let's pull down the strength of that pulsing effect. Next we have a EQ on this one, and I called it clean and brighten. So this basically does exactly what it says. It basically cleans up the articulations of those strums and those chords. It really brings out the high end of that guitar and all the articulations in the frets and everything. So you can hear the high-pitched sounds and the fret noises and stuff. So now we're moving on to macros 9 through 14. I left 15 and 16 macros blank so that you can add whatever you want to control inside of BeatMaker 3. Number 9 is dedicated to the attack of each pad. As you hit the strum on the pads, it's going to give a straightforward attack. As you move the attack strength up, it starts to take a little bit longer for that strum to kick in, and it kind of phases the initial strum out. The initial impact of that chord being strummed kind of takes that out, and it almost gives it like almost a reverse effect. So yeah, on macro number 10 I have some stutter effects. So basically this does sort of like what the fly tape does. And I mostly use that macro number 10 for like performance type stuff. If I want to have like a glitching effect or have the guitar kind of sound like it's stuttering into the next note, then on an external controller I will use that to toggle back and forth between stutter modes and stutter speeds. So next up is the famous wah-wah effect that we usually hear on guitars, and you can use this macro real time. So you can also use that macro real time and affect that real time for performance as well. Now here's the delay that I was talking about that controls on macro number 6. So this is the delay strength. You can kind of hear some of the reflections come out of that guitar. The higher the strength is, the more that you hear those reflections on that delay. So if we go back to macro number 6, you can control the delay speed. So that is the delay. That is what that does. And then you have the Lo-Fi crush, and this just controls how much of that bit rate is coming through when you're playing that sample. And then you have the crush rate, which controls the strength and the bit rate of that crush. So you get that nice warm lo-fi hiss inside. So if you would like to combine macros and make them all do all their things simultaneously, let's turn up the delay. Let's turn up muffle. And so you got a real nice lo-fi sounding guitar on your hands, and you have some really dope vibes. And just playing around with these macros, you can come up with some crazy stuff. So let's go ahead and go back to the muffle filter. And that's pretty much the instrument that I used to make the beat that you just heard in the beginning. So you can see that using these macros and changing all these parameters, whether it's real time or leaving it the way it is, or even just changing stuff on the fly, automation, all this stuff is automatable, if that's a word. But all this stuff is automatable, and you can change this stuff on the fly, or just tweak the sound the way exactly the way you need it for your composition. If you want access to this sound bank, I will be putting the link in the description to where you can get your hands on it. For the first couple of days, I think I will only be charging $1.99. After a certain time, I will bump it up to $2.99. So go ahead and cop that if you really like that, and let me know if there's any other things you guys want me to sample and make instruments out of for BeatMaker 3 or any other iOS DAW. Let me know. We'll make it happen. I'm Brandon Rico, and this has been Silky Strings exclusive sound pack, especially for BeatMaker 3 only. So let me know if you rock with it. Thanks for rocking with me. Thanks for rocking with the channel. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.